Hello, and welcome to the Brad Beldon Show, your go-to podcast for all things roofing, the latest buzz in San Antonio, local politics, and just about anything else under the sun.
I'm really excited today because we have John Arellano with GAF Materials. Welcome, John.
Brad, thank you so much. I am so honored that you would take the time to have me on your show. I'm super excited about this.
Well, it should be a lot of fun.
I'm sure it will be.
So, John, can you share with our audience your journey into the roofing industry and what led you to specialize in steep slope roofing at GAF?
Wow, you're not wasting any time. I'm going to get right into it. It's interesting. I've been in the business now for going on 30 years, and I've always said to folks, with very few exceptions, Brad, most of us are not born into the industry. Most of us end up in the industry.
And that's dangerous because once you're here, it's like quicksand. You can't get out.
And that's exactly what happened to me. That's my journey. After the Marine Corps, I go home to Los Angeles. I go to college. After school, I can't find a job that pays very well. And I ended up applying to a roofing company in a sales position. And after a training program where I think they did their job pretty well, turns out I was effective at the job and I was helping others. I was working outside under the sun. I was being very physical. And that's the rest is history, as they say.
Well, same thing for me, right? I've been here now since I was 12. So I'm 47 years in this industry.
Was there an OSHA back then, Brad?
No, there wasn't. And I rode in the back of the pickup and I slid down metal roofs and I slid down ladders with my feet on the side, just like everybody else did back then. Actually, one of our guests brought that up, and one of the best things about OSHA is that they did put into place much safer practices.
It's very important. We're in a very dangerous environment, what we do.
It's not like we understood that the danger was there. It was always there. Mm-hmm. We just weren't cognizant of the danger.
We ignored it.
Yeah.
It was also, let's face it, this is the gentlemen, the folks that join this industry in terms of, on the labor side, they're manly men, and they got big egos, and they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and so sometimes that harness gets in the way. But ultimately, that harness is our best friend. So
John, I got to ask, you look awfully tired. I know you stayed up late last night watching the game. God, no, that was a 4-hour game.
That was.
But John, so late out there, did your team win? Because Susan was wearing a shirt, and now we're avid Cowboy fans, and she was wearing a shirt. Anybody but the Chiefs, which I don't understand, but it seems like all their State Farm commercials, all the commercials that they're doing, they have more people who don't like them than they do like them. So, did your team win last night, or
my team did not? I'm a product of the Southern California '80s, and San Francisco. It's always been near and dear to my heart. Montana and Jerry Rice, just the magic that they created in that field, and I follow them to this very day. However, I'm not saddened by that statement. I'm not saddened because I've always said a Super Bowl should be won, with in overtime, and it should be a nail biter, and we got that last night. So just a phenomenal game, and hats off to KC and the team.
I didn't hear it on ESPN this morning, but I think one of the biggest plays in that whole drive at the end was that fourth down conversion where he ran for the first down, and it's just like, to me, it's completely overlooked.
There was a lot of plays that were phenomenal, and I got to tell you, I don't know the name of the lineman that tipped the ball on the extra point
changed
kick.
The whole game.
But in my opinion, that's your MVP, KC.
Yeah.
That is your MVP, that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that absolutely. So John, now that football season's over, you can get back to doing what we do every single day. There's 90,000 roofers across the country. What you do has got to be hard. As a territory manager for GAF, and as Beldon Roofing as one of your clients, and you have so many of us, how do you juggle all that, and what do y'all do on a daily basis in that role as a territory manager?
Thank you for asking me that question, Brad, because I don't think that folks truly understand our focus. And I can't speak from the industry at large, but in general, in our role as a territory manager at GIF is pretty straightforward. Our mandate from our corporate office on down is to work with the roofing contractors and help them build their business, help them solve business problems and business challenges. And that's where we want you to spend your time. That's from the corporate office, the C-suite on down.
From David and David, huh?
From David and David. And the message there is pretty simple. You know, we're a privately held company. We don't worry about a 10K or what Wall Street says. And so we can make decisions that are long-term in vision, right? And so if we help contractors generate more revenue, make payroll on Friday, retain key employees, things of that nature, if we can help a contractor do that, they're going to remember who brought that to the table, who helped them when they were down. And that is a long string of loyalty we will earn over many, many years. So 80% of my day is typically spent with roofing contractors, trying to identify what are those business challenges. Do we at GAF have something that can help that contractor solve that problem? I spend 10% with roofing distribution and then 10% with specifiers and architects for trying to generate tomorrow's business.
Do you find, like in the doctor's offices, that a lot of doctors don't have business acumen, and you have a lot of roofers who grew up installing roofs that maybe don't necessarily have that business acumen? Is that what GAF is focusing on and trying to help those contractors become successful businessmen?
That's exactly the reason.
Or business women.
I'm sorry?
Or business women.
Or business women, yeah. Today, the dynamics have definitely shifted. But that's exactly one of the reasons, things I was tasked with when I joined GIF in 2003 was, you know, focus on the contractor, develop tools, programs, resources that help them solve those problems. Because we saw way back then, in 1997, contractors in general, salt of the earth, hardworking, good people. But when you come off the roof and go into an office and hang up your shingle, no pun intended, how you install the shingle doesn't matter as much as how you run your business. And so if we can focus on helping the contractor develop a sales process, train to the sales process, offer financing, communicate differentiation in the eyes of the homeowner, things of that nature, we know in the long run, they're going to do better. They're going to improve. And we're going to be there to service them and walk with them side by side.
Well, and if you think about it, historically in our industry, you had about a 30% closing ratio.
That's pretty typical.
If you trained on that business acumen that a lot of people don't have, would dramatically improve your closing ratio. And even if you go from 30% to 40%, that's huge.
You know, 30 to 40 is that's a huge increase. But imagine 30 to 35 over the course of 10 years. That's a small change, but in 10 years, it yields massive benefits to the contractor, to her employees, to their families, to the community. That's phenomenal, and I'm proud to be associated with that.
Well, one of the things I talk about is 1% daily improvement, and compounded over a year, it's a significant difference. And each one of us, it's not really rocket science. Each one of us can get better by 1% every single day.
That's the goal. And the understanding is that I've got competitors out there in my marketplace that I'm competing against, generally speaking, every day. So if I yield a 1% benefit, to your point, Brad, every day, it does compound. But if I yield a 1% improvement and my competitor does not, if he or she is static, I'm going to win.
Yeah,
I'm going to win. Whether I'm a contractor, whether I'm Walmart, whether I'm, the GIF territory manager, we're going to win. And so it's small incremental changes over time generate very large results.
So John, most of our audience probably isn't familiar with the terminology of steep slope. Could you walk our audience through the difference between steep slope and low slope? And why that's important to them?
Love to. And I'm going to use my hands here for this, Brad, because I do this quite a bit. Steep slope in the architectural community is defined as a 2 and 12 slope or higher. So if my roof slope is about that, 2 and 12 plus or minus, or higher, we use steep slope products, which are generally going to be overlapping materials like shingles and tiles and things of that nature. Once you drop below 2 and 12, that falls into the category of low slope. And in low slope, you don't have Mother Nature helping you, gravity, shed water onto the ground like you do on steep slope. So the materials from 2 and 12 below, they change considerably. The mechanism, technology, there's a lot of plastics and welding and heat used on low slope roofs to weld those seams together. Whereas on steep slope systems, we tend to let the shingles or the materials overlap and water just sheds over them.
Well, and steep slopes considerably more difficult to install. Well, I guess low slope could be too, but
Sure.
But what are those challenges that as contractors that you see us facing between a steep slope roof and a low slope roof?
There's a lot of challenges. One of them on steep slope roof, I would say we have to start with safety. Everything we do as a business needs to focus on making sure our employees, our resources go home to their families every night. And so on steep slope roofs, well, you've got gravity working against you. And generally, because of the nature of steep slope roofs, they're going to shed water down to a gutter or down to the ground. There's no mechanism, there's no structure to retain someone who maybe slips, right? So from steep slope to low slope, I think it's safety first. We've got to understand that, safety is a huge part. The other part is because once you get on low slope projects, those tend to be much larger. And so you may have a crew that's on a low slope job for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes 2 months. I know you've had some of those jobs.
Yeah, we've been on jobs that lasted more than one fiscal year.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Those are large commercial industrial projects. So if you've got a crew member who's on a 2, 3, 4 month project, working on a generally flat surface with parapet walls to retain his safety and keep him or her safe, it's very difficult to get that employee to voluntarily say, hey, let me go to put a roof on a house.
It's funny you should say that because we roofed a synagogue here, Temple Bethel, probably 5 years ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a barrel roof, very steep. And we had to build scaffolding over the top. And Ludowici found the original molds. And I think it was 90-something years old. We couldn't get volunteers to go up there, right? I mean, even when we went up there to inspect the work, just standing there on that curvature, it was very difficult. And you imagine doing that for 6 months.
That's very difficult.
Yeah, steep slope roofing is a real challenge, and safety continues to be a challenge for every contractor. Our motto here is that you have a two-way ticket. You have a ticket to work and you have a ticket home.
I love that. I love that.
And so we work on it every single day to make sure that everybody ends up getting home. And safety is one of our largest investments that we make in our company, and we make it in our people, right? It's as we tell them, there's insurance that covers if something happens, if you fall, but you're the one that has to live with the pain.
That's right.
Or your spouse or significant other is the one that has to live with a death.
Mm-hmm.
We have the tools and the equipment to make sure you working on a roof is safe. And it's hard. It's hard to convince that mindset of people who've been roofing for 30, 40 years who don't think they need to be tied off.
Terrible. It's terrible practice. I also think that your community that's listening today isn't always aware of these challenges. Whether if it's as a layperson who knows nothing about roofing, driving down the road, we see a roof, we don't think about it. You see a barrel roof, bowstring truss roof from the ground. It looks, it should be simple. Just walk up there. When you get up there and you realize one bad step and I'm on the ground, it is very dangerous what your people do every single day. And I commend you for focusing on safety.
What we do every day is dangerous. There's no question about that. John, like me, you're a huge Spurs fan. Unlike me, you got to go to Tony Parker's Hall of Fame game. That had to be an incredible experience. What was that like for you?
It's interesting. I moved to San Antonio in Thanksgiving of '09, and I noticed very, very quickly that this city is just. I've never been in a place where the community, where the city, where the citizens embrace their local team to the degree.
It's almost a cult.
It is, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And so to
we
be
all love
part
the
of
Spurs.
to be part of that is fantastic. And so I know Tony Parker and many others were part of the DNA, if you will, of that culture. They built that. So it was wonderful to be at that game and watch him be honored last summer. Believe it was in August. And so that's phenomenal. I am a big Spurs fan, but not for the reasons you think, Brad. Historically, I've never been a huge basketball guy. But as my boys started growing up and differing tastes in music, differing tastes in interest, differing tastes in what they consume on television. And I started kind of seeing us kind of branch off, and I needed to find some mechanism to bring us back together. And so buying season passes to the Spurs game was the most brilliant thing I've ever done. Because now 44 times a year,
spend time with you, yeah?
44 times a year, we're hanging out together for a number of hours,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 hours.
Yeah.
We're eating together, we're talking together, and when we get back home, they both go to their rooms and they disappear for a few more days. But we have that one commonality, and sometimes at breakfast the next morning, we're talking about the game last night. And so that's why I did it, and I'll continue to do that as long as my kids permit me to.
Well, I'm sure that they will.
Yeah, we're having a good time.
So getting back to some roofing, this industry has seen tremendous growth in technology and development. How has that growth and how has that change impacted GAF and the installation of steep slope roofing?
That's a great question. It's so broad. I mean, we can go in a million different directions with this one, Brad. At the end of the day, our steep slope business is the largest segment of GIF's U.S. business. Maybe, don't quote me, 2/3 of our business is steep slope in the U.S.
Wow, that's hard to believe. I was not aware of that.
It's sizable. It is sizable, absolutely. And our commercial division is our second largest division and segment. And so when you look at the steep slope business, historically, for well over 100 years, it's been dependent on shingles, and shingles are manufactured from asphalt. And so geopolitically, you've got a lot of stuff that happens around the world, and that impacts our ready and available access to high-quality asphalt. Lots of things.
Which has happened multiple times.
It
right?
happens a lot. I've been at GIF.
It happened in the 70s. It happened in the
21
80s.
years,
Yeah.
and I've seen it so many times. It's now the norm, right? Yeah. And so it makes it very difficult for us to plan our future when we have this. It's a reliable stream of asphalt coming into our business because we have very talented people focusing all their time to make sure we have that. But at some point, there's always the risk of disruption.
Well, and you're buying asphalt from countries who aren't as stable as the United States.
At the end of the day, there are no longer any asphalt refineries in the U.S.
Yeah,
we have no choice.
Yeah.
The last one went bankrupt and shut their doors during the pandemic. And so you're absolutely right. We're sourcing from offshore. So that
from unfriendly countries in many instances.
Many instances. So it makes us a little nervous. So to combat that, if you will, to be thoughtful about our future and how do we control our own destiny. We're very invested in other technologies. You will see in this market here in Texas in 2025 a product called Timber Steel, which is our first entrance into the stamped metal panel industry. So we're moving from asphalt. Now, we're not going to abandon asphalt, but we're going to shift some of our business from asphalt to metal, which is more
But if you look since COVID, the delta between an asphalt product and a metal product used to be here. Now it's closer to here.
That's exactly right.
At some point, the cost of asphalt, just to get it here to the U.S., it may be cost prohibitive down the road.
It'll surpass. At some point, the forecast is it may surpass the cost of steel.
Yeah, which is mind-boggling for those of us that have been in this
steel
industry.
can be generated, can be developed domestically. So that's I think that's one thing we're doing. The other thing that we're doing is we recently launched GAF Solar,
that's a cool looking shingle.
That is a shingle. It's a shingle designed for installation by the contractor, by the installers that put down your shingles every day. And so you don't have to bring in a solar integrator. The same guys that are putting down your roofing materials can also install the solar system. Plug it in, put the line in the roof, and then walk away. The electrician comes in and does the rest. So I think when you look at those two major technologies and our investment and focus on that, we can start to kind of hedge our bets against the future.
So you were talking about solar. Everybody's tried it. Dow tried it. Owens Corning tried it. Tesla is in the middle of it. You've tried it. Where do you see that? Take your GAF hat off. Where do you see solar 5-10 years? You see it as a viable solution to our energy crisis, or something that those who have the means will want to invest because it makes sense?
I don't think there's a single solution to an energy crisis. I think this is one sliver of a solution, but it must be a component of the solution. And at the same time that we are working on this solution, I should hope others are working on other solutions.
Well, and if you don't have battery backup, and storing that energy, it's probably not as effective as we'd like for it to be.
You better hope for a full moon every night.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so, when I look at solar, and in 2008, GAF tasked me with analyzing the solar business, and we formed a partnership with General Electric and Unirac, and GAF launched its first crude version of our solar system. It worked. We were the first players in the marketplace because we knew we had to have an exposure so we could learn more about it, right? And we knew at some point we'd evolve away from that, and we certainly have. But we saw solar a little along the lines of, it's on the roof. We, the roofing community, contractors, distribution, manufacturing, we own that real estate. And if we're not careful, the electrician industry or the electrical industry will take that from us. And that was our primary concern in 2008, and it remains a primary concern.
I think it's a huge concern.
It is.
Yeah,
And
for
if
roofing contractors.
If you go to markets that are heavily unionized, New York, New Jersey, Chicago, there's a lot of activity at the union level and at policy level to keep any electrification of a roofing plane in the hands of a licensed electrician. And so what that does is it takes it out of the hands of a licensed roofing professional.
Right, yeah.
So we need to manage that. We need to be, forward thinking. And of course, at the end of the day, that's our turf. That's our territory.
Right. And it's dangerous to be up there. That leads me into another question about, that's a great sustainability, eco-friendly type product.
Mm-hmm.
What other initiatives does GAF have that you could share with our audience from an eco-friendly product line that GAF has that a consumer who wants to be eco-friendly could put on their home?
That's a wonderful question. So if you look at our core everyday product, which I like to call the Chevy, right? Most of the roofs out there in this country they're not Mercedes-Benz or Lexuses, they're Chevrolets. And so GAF Chevrolet is called Timberline HDZ. And so many, many years back, we started a process to try to apply and insert into the manufacturing stream recycled content, recycled asphalt. And it's not an easy thing to do, but we figured it out. We figured out how to take shingles off of a roof, send them to a factory, break them down into their component parts, and extract usable asphalt in the form of what we call a briquette. Think charcoal, right? Charcoal briquettes. Then we take those charcoal briquettes, we send them back into our factories where we make Timberline HDZ, and we insert this recycled product back into the stream of new manufacturing product. Now, we're just beginning to scale that. It's a very small percentage currently, somewhere around 3 to 5%. And it's not in every factory yet, right? This is a process that takes some time to scale, and we got to make sure we get it right. We can't make a mistake here on the backs of our customers. But that's something that we're super excited about, and we're investing very heavily in.
And really, that probably starts with local governments, in that there's not really significant recycling facilities for roofing products that contain asphalt that are removed from a home, or even a commercial application where you could separate the asphalt and the nails and everything else that's in there. I think in my lifetime, I think that will happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're still a long way away from it, but certainly you, along with some of the other manufacturers, have started a trend to try and fix that. And once again, you're relying on asphalt from other countries. We have to find solutions here in the United States
Correct.
to lower those costs. And you're also, when I got in this industry, and until probably 10 years ago, San Antonio was really a 3-tab market.
Sure.
And you're starting to see, now that y'all have come up with some creative designs, the customer is moving away from that 3-tab and moving into a dimensional product with that newer technology, and also educating the installation crews on how to properly install them.
Goodness,
And it's
yes.
so much better looking roof.
Yes. And they perform so much better than 3-tabs. 3-tabs have historically been rated at a 60 mile per hour wind, maximum wind speed. So at 61 miles per hour, they start to flap and disintegrate and tear off the roof, frankly. And, if you pull a weather history of, downtown San Antonio, you will routinely see every year 70, 80, 90 mile per hour wind gusts. If you got to the hill country, higher elevation, fewer buildings, we can exceed that pretty easily. So you need a roofing system that can withstand those natural elements that occur locally.
And don't you think that the dimensional product is changing the market trend all the way across, whether it's from an appearance standpoint or from a wind standpoint?
Mm-hmm.
That the 3-tab product, when you look at your availability of asphalt and you look at your availability of granules, I see over time that product's going to be phased out.
I've been saying that for 21 years here at GIF, but no one's listening to me. So
as a contractor, we're just not seeing the demand there. The trends are certainly away from a 3-tab, more
Correct.
towards, there's so many levels of dimensional shingles.
I agree.
You can get in at a price point and investment that's not considerably more than a 3-tab, and the appearance, the street appeal, especially if you have 6-on-12, 4-on-12, or even greater.
Very visible plane.
Yeah, the street appeal is just so significant.
I agree. I think from an installed cost perspective on a typical home, you're looking at maybe a $500 increase from a 3-tab to a dimensional roof. You're going to get so much more curb appeal, increased value in the home. You're going to get better protection from the elements, from wind, from hail, from whatever Mother Nature can throw at it. So it's a very, very small investment. And so I'd love to see 3-tab, get retired. And I think maybe at some point in our careers that may happen.
I don't have any knowledge. I'm just suggesting based on our own data.
Sure.
That we're starting to see less and less of that.
We don't see a lot of it anymore. Yeah. I agree.
In terms of geography and regions of the country, what steep slope products do you find in most demand? Are you starting to see more demand for the metal that you talked about? Are you seeing more demand for solar, or is it more demand for the next level dimensional shingle, where the second or third tier, or across the country? Is it just everywhere? Demand is increasing.
It's a great question, Brad, and you're always so good at sending complex questions in my direction. There is no simple answer. Demand is local, right? Demand, it happens right here on Main Street, USA. And so when we look at Timberline HDZ, which is, we install that on 3 million homes a year across North America, U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
Think about that. It's 3 million.
3 million homes.
That's a big number,
it's
right?
a huge number. But if you go to Southern California, huge percentage of those homes are concrete tile. Arizona, concrete tile. Florida, concrete tile. And so the percentage of HDZ, or I should say laminate shingles that ship into those markets, are a smaller percentage than you might find in Illinois or Texas. And then in Texas and Illinois, you see not so much concrete tile, but you'll see a lot more metal than you might traditionally see in other markets. So it's all very localized. In terms of solar is driven by two things. Someone who just has an undeniable and very passionate approach towards the environment and environmentalism.
You mean somebody who drives a Tesla?
Somebody who drives a Tesla, somebody who hugs a tree.
Yeah.
And hey, look, I love the outdoors, so I hug trees, but at the end of the day, it's got to be an economical proposition for me. And so economics of the solar systems are driven by utilities and by local policy in local governments. And so if I'm in a state that really has no interest in supporting the solar infrastructure,
I think it'd be really hard.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
Almost impossible.
For me to go sell you a $40,000 solar system that's going to take 50 years to repay itself, right? And so solar we see in markets where you have three variables. You have favorable policy by state and county officials. You have utilities that pay for net metering. That means they credit you when your meter runs backwards during the daytime. And you have high utility costs. So if you look at the city of San Francisco, the city itself, not the state, just the city of San Francisco, they're paying 28 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity.
Which is double what it is here.
That's double than what we pay here. They have county incentives, city incentives, utility incentives. They have net metering, meter runs backwards, and they've got federal incentives. Right now, we all have federal incentives, but so when you rack and stack all those incentives in the city of San Francisco, that $40,000 system cost me maybe $5,000 out of pocket, and I'm saving $400 a month on power.
Right? Why not do it?
Why not do it?
Right,
As long as I'm going to live in this home 3 or 4 years, I'm going to recoup that investment and then sell it to the next homeowner. Not the case everywhere in this country. So it's local.
So it's interesting you say that you picked California. I put the $100 down on a Cybertruck like the other 2 million people. I did it on day one, and it's interesting. The two states that they're shipping to right now are Texas and California, right? Because of the issues you just talked about.
Sure. Well, Texas, this is a pickup state. I believe in Texas, if you don't have a pickup truck, doesn't somebody show up and take your testicles or something?
Yeah,
Can I say that? I'm sorry. I just
you can. You say anything you want. On the
so
Brad
when I
Beldon
moved
Show.
to Texas, I got a pickup truck. I just to play it safe.
So I know you're from California.
Yes, sir.
And you moved from one great state to Texas.
I did.
And you've been here a while. Texas or California, where's the best place?
I got to tell you, GAF moved me from Los Angeles to Las Vegas to New Jersey to Texas. And I think all of those locations and many others I've traveled to have merit. But one thing, when people ask me a similar question, I've always said, San Antonio specifically is an easy place to live. It's an easy place to raise a family. It's an easy place to have some space to spread your elbows. And so I left California for a reason. It's not an easy place to live.
Well, and I mean, the traffic here in some places is pretty bad, but it's limited to probably 5 or 10% of the commute.
That's right.
And you know, if you're on 1604 or you're on 10 or 35, it can be pretty bad.
I agree.
But our infrastructure is such that there's plenty of back roads and easy routes to get to your places. And you know, I think in California you measure distance by time.
That's right.
Here we still measure it by miles, right?
That's right. We do.
Yeah.
We do. And the way the city is laid out in a circular pattern with multiple loops, you're right. If you know the major thoroughfares that can move you around the city and save some time, and you're patient, you can move in San Antonio.
I guess in California, Waze doesn't help y'all at all, right?
Waze doesn't help me when I'm on the 405 and there's a car turned over in front of me. I'm
Right.
going to sit there for 3 hours.
You're not moving.
Waze is telling me, leave the car, walk.
Yeah. That's such a great app. I love that product, and it really changes how long it takes you to get somewhere because
That's right.
It reroutes you, and it's really good.
However, I do have a problem with Waze and Google Maps and all the others. I think it's making me dumber because I can't jump in my
remember the
car.
name of the
I don't
streets.
remember how to get here anymore.
So you've been at GAF for a long time now.
Yes, sir.
You've had incredible achievements. What would you say is the coolest project you've worked on in the 20 plus years at GAF?
There's been a ton of them, and some memorable ones. When I joined the company, our sales in Mexico were $0.00, and that is
Wait,
not
you
the
worked
case today.
in Mexico?
I worked in Mexico. I was part of the
I
team.
never knew that. They
that
put an Italian in Mexico?
I was part of the team that developed the commercial roofing market in
I did not
Mexico
know
for
that.
GAF. So I was proud of that achievement. Solar. Today's GAF solar shingle, it's got my DNA on it. In 2008, I did the research and I convinced the company to put their toe in the water in the solar space. So I'm proud of that. But beyond all those achievements, I'm proudest of working so close with roofing contractors for 18 years, identifying what are their business challenges. And my standard staple question to a new contractor I was speaking to was, what keeps you up at night? And you know, they never
Everything.
They never said the quality of your shingle.
Yeah.
That didn't keep them up at night.
Yeah.
What keeps you up at night is, how am I going to make payroll on Friday?
Yep.
Why? Why is my workman's comp so expensive? Why are my people not closing the way they closed 2 years ago, et cetera? Why can't I retain people, et cetera, et cetera? And so I worked with a team at GAF for 18 years to develop solutions to many of those problems. Now, some of them are beyond our grasp, but those problems where we could, impact them and bring them some tools and resources that help them solve those problems. I've seen people just I've talked contractors off the ledge. And then 2 years later, they have a phenomenal business, right? And I am so proud of that because they're helping themselves, they're helping their families, they're helping their employees and the families of their employees. You got to think about, Brad, and I know you know this. If a company has 50 employees, you're not just responsible for those 50.
Nope.
You're responsible for the 50 times 4 that they have at home.
So we call it the rule of 1920 here.
19. You have the numbers, okay?
Yeah, so the rule of 1920 is that everybody here with roughly 160 employees, same 4 per family, 3 meals a day, every single one of us is responsible for putting 1,920 meals out there every single day. So
Wow.
at Beldon, the rule is it's the rule of 1920, and it I have this notepad, and Susan says, "Why do you have a notepad next to on the nightstand?" I'm like, "Because I don't sleep, right? And I write the stuff down so hopefully I can go back to sleep." But it's the thing you talked about. It's the things that keep you up at night, operating a business. It'll wear you out.
It does.
And but it also is extremely rewarding because when you do put those 1,920 meals on today, you get to start over tomorrow and do it again.
That's right.
And it really is about family. And you talked earlier about your boys, and you got the Spurs season tickets. And I know that you and the boys love nature. And I know that you completely disconnect when y'all go out there. What got the 3 of y'all into nature, and how long have y'all been doing all those trips?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. You're going to bring me back to my childhood. I think I was in my 30s or 40s when I discovered that growing up, we were poor. We had no money. I didn't know that at the time because, every one weekend per month, Mom and Dad would there's 4 of us, 4 boys, would take us in the van. In California, we are within, 2 or 3 hour drive of 50 state beaches, county parks, national parks, state parks. There's no shortage of places to go outside and get away from the city. So every month, Mom and Dad would take us out camping, take us camping on the beach, camping in Sequoia and Grand Canyon, and you name it. And so that's part of my DNA. It's just I can't live.
You camped in the Grand Canyon?
You name it. We've been there.
Okay, that's cool.
We've been there.
I've never
Absolutely.
done that.
Yeah.
I think you talk about not sleeping now. If I was sleeping in the Grand Canyon, I would not sleep. I'd be scared. I'd be eaten.
I camped in Yosemite in January with 2 feet of snow on the ground.
Well, that's just flat out stupid.
well, it is, but it's an experience, and my kids still talk about it today.
Wow.
Right? So it's fun. There was a snowstorm in Seattle over Christmas last year. I should say 2022, excuse me. And the boys and I went up to Seattle, and we did 3 national parks in 4 days.
Wow,
and,
that's cool.
Yeah, and so again, I want my kids to have that as part of their DNA so that they can hopefully impart that to their children, my grandchildren someday.
Well, so your parents had 4 boys. You have boys.
I do.
Hopefully somebody's going to have a girl somewhere down the road.
At some point, we have to break that chain. Interestingly, I was supposed to be a girl. Mom and Dad were shooting for a girl with me, missed. They had my brother Peter, missed. They had Alex, missed. They had Edward, missed. And then they gave up. I'm like, I guess the girl's not in the cards for us.
Yeah, well, it's my parents have 13 grandkids, 9 girls, 4 boys. They have 4 great grandboys already.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're trying to change that trajectory. so it's kind of cool. John, there's so many different things to consider when a homeowner wants to re-roof their home or their church or anything that has steep slope.
Sure.
What kind of advice would you give our audience for solutions that are available to them from GAF?
I would suggest do your homework. make sure you're working with the right contractor. And I know it's a difficult thing to say to a homeowner or a building owner who's not in the trade. You and I know what to look for. We do this for a living every day. But if I'm a homeowner or if I'm a president of an HOA, I don't know what to look for. I don't know what problems exist around the corner. So my suggestion is always to, and this is not about GIF, this is just about consumerism. Don't rush into anything. Do some research, look at reviews, talk to people. Every reputable contractor would be happy to provide you with a long list of happy customers. Every reputable contractor will provide you with a copy of their insurance, a copy of their, whatever it may be that helps you identify this as the professional you want to work with.
Well, and what's interesting about it is we don't manufacture refrigerators. We don't manufacture cars. Our product is not finished until we walk off the job.
That's
right?
correct.
You want to go buy a car, you walk to the lot and you look at all the cars on the lot. They're finished. You just drive it off.
That's right.
We're taking your fifth wall of your home, your church, your building off.
That's right. They're exposing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated. And you can run into bad decking. There's so many things that can go wrong. And we also advise potential customers to go look at our reviews.
Absolutely.
They're not perfect. And we're okay with that because what that means is you're contracting with human beings.
That's right.
Human beings make mistakes. The difference between one company and another company is, do they take care of those mistakes?
How do you respond?
Right. And how do you respond? And I think that you'll find with good contractors is, hey, something went wrong, but they stood behind their product. They fixed it. And then we moved on.
And it worked out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, Brad, and I'm sure you know this, we've done the math. When you replace a roof on someone's home, not commercial, just a home, there are 20 to 25 different roofing materials that arrive in the driveway for your technicians to assemble. And they've got to be perfect.
And you're not flat. Right?
Correct. Yeah. No, and you're like this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the wind's blowing. Oh, and by the way, do you remember August? 110 degrees
for 60 plus days.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, it was unbearable.
We're asking these folks to frankly create miracles, and they do every single day. I could not think of an industry that I would want to associate myself more than this one.
So with all these changes, how do you stay ahead and up to date on industry trends, and how does it impact your ability to learn and educate all the contractors in your marketplace?
I've always felt that when you stop learning, you start dying. Now, let's face it, you and I no longer work on top of roofs with manual labor. You go up on roofs to look around.
Hey, I don't do anything that I'm not asking others to do.
I can appreciate that. I no longer go on roofs. I no longer have blisters on my hands, and so that means I've shifted my skill set from my body labor to my brain.
But that's just as important.
And that's where I believe we have to continue learning every day. And so there's dozens of professional trade publications, professional roofing contractor, roofers coffee shop, journal like construction. I can go on and on. And so I read those. And maybe I don't read cover to cover anymore, right? But I'll grab the articles that are relevant to me or to my field. And I want to make sure that I am knowledgeable. I do believe if I'm going to bring value to a roofing contractor or my community, I need to know more than them. I need to bring them some value. And so, read. Today it's all digital.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy how much is at your fingertips.
Absolutely. I'm sure this blog can bring this podcast can bring a lot of value to contractors. And
my wife says, how come you sit there every single night in bed and go through your phone? I'm like, I'm trying to pick up on the latest trends.
That's it.
I'm like, that's when it's quiet for me.
Correct.
And the dog's sitting next to me and he's just looking at me like I'm an idiot. But it's my quiet time.
Correct.
It's my time to go through and say, okay, what can I do better? How do I get that 1% better today?
Well, that's when you have to do it. And that's what sometimes the audience who doesn't own a business doesn't realize is that, during the working hours, it's nonstop. You'll get 80 to 90 texts a day another 80 to 90 emails a day and phone calls and whatnot. The only time you can truly think about the future is at night, or I'm an early riser, 5 a.m. I'm thinking.
And one of the things that we tell everybody at Team Beldon is you can learn a lot by yourself,
Sure.
right? When we built this studio and you walked in and said, wow, this is a real studio.
This is very impressive.
When we built this studio, we built it with YouTube, right? We never built a studio. We built one studio. We made some mistakes along the way, but we've built one studio, and we did it because we had confidence in our own ability to go out there, educate ourselves, and we were not afraid to make mistakes.
I am convinced that a couple of intrepid guys like you and I and YouTube, we can figure out a way to put a guy on the moon.
Yeah.
We can do anything on YouTube, and that's technology.
We just call Elon, right?
Let's call Elon.
On to the next problem.
That is leveraging technology to move us forward. I think that's phenomenal.
So from an education standpoint, y'all just opened up last month a new energy factory in Georgetown.
Georgetown, right up the road.
What's the focus of that new endeavor?
So that is the largest photovoltaic factory on the planet. I thought it was the largest in the U.S., and I was proud of that. It turns out it's the largest on the planet.
Well, you're just down the street from Tesla's.
That's exactly
plant.
right. You can throw a rock and hit Tesla, which is another massive factory. But that factory in Georgetown, which just opened up last month, to your point, Brad, is where we're going to be. That's our second factory where we're going to be manufacturing the GAF solar shingle. In fact, it's already producing commercial products, commercially viable products on one line. There's 4 more lines coming online.
That's really cool.
So it'll be right here in your backyard.
Right here in the home state of Texas.
That's exactly right. You'll be able to get your product tomorrow if you need it.
That's great. So, John, one of our main focuses as we finish up today is consumers sometimes are hesitant about investing in the necessary products to get a manufacturer's warranty. And we're always telling them it's always good to have somebody bigger than the roofing contractor behind your product, because you just never know what will happen.
It's a fair statement.
And so what advice would you give to our audience who's on the fence about, the 5 or 6 products that you need to invest in to get a manufacturer's warranty and why it's so important to them?
I think it's, as a homeowner myself, we sometimes need to step back and see the big picture. Most people, when they drive home from work, don't look at their roof. I would say we don't look at roofs.
Do.
Well, you and I do.
I'm not typical.
Oh, I'm driving down the interstate at 90 miles an hour looking at roofs. But most homeowners simply don't. They don't think about the roof until something goes wrong. And then if you stop and think about that, every single thing you own, your possessions, where your family sleeps and eats and rests, and where you combine with your family, it all happens underneath that roof. So do you really want to take a shortcut on that one item? By the way, the largest investments on your home outside of the home is the roof of that home.
It's just getting more expensive every year.
It's incredibly expensive. It's so labor intensive and so many materials, and you've got to have some skill. So I would recommend to homeowners, again, do your homework, make sure you have the right contractor, make sure they're installing a system. And a system is just like buying that Toyota. You buy a Toyota, everything in that car was made by Toyota. And if something goes wrong with any of those items, it's covered by Toyota. That's what you want. And roofs are no different. I like to say people taking shortcuts with roofs, if something goes wrong, it's the inverse of a lottery. A lottery, we all want to win. Well, the opposite of that is buying a roof that goes wrong, because you just spent $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 on a roof. A year later, something goes wrong, your roofer is gone. You can't find that roofer because you picked the wrong guy. And now you've got to talk to a guy like Brad Beldon, and you're going to have to do it again, except, you're just wasting money. You just spend a few, 6, 7, 8, 10% more the first time around with the right contractor on the right system. You're going to have a great system that's going to last. And to Brad's point, our sales last year eclipsed $6 billion in revenue. I've been here 21 years. I've approved those checks for claims for roofs that go wrong. Just like you, Brad, we make mistakes. and we don't do it on purpose, but we like to step up when we make those mistakes. I've seen the checks we've written for claims that were for that guy that disappeared, after he put the roof on. And I've seen the checks we've written for contractors like the Beldon Company, and it's night and day. You truly want to have that larger protection with an enhanced warranty with a reputable company.
Speaking of Toyota, for those in our audience who live in this area, the customer experience center at the Tundra plant, phenomenal.
Never been there. I'm going to make a trip.
What their attention to detail on those pickup trucks is, and the Sequoia is just incredible. They build a really good product right here in San Antonio, Texas.
How about that?
And if you're in the market to buy a car or an SUV, support Toyota, who supports San Antonio.
I agree.
John, a sincere thank you for being on today's episode of the Brad Beldon Show.
Thank you
and
for
providing
having me, Brad.
Just incredible perspectives on residential roofing.
Such an honor. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you all for tuning in today. And as my friend Judd Ashmore used to say, hug somebody. It'll make you feel better.